Welcome back to the Old Colony Cast, a podcast about all things Plymouth and surrounding areas. I am one of your hosts, Andy, and I am joined by the other host, Hanna.
Hello.
And producer, I don't have a good title for him today.
Engineer, captain.
Captain Antonil Fish. But it's an Antonil, like an N with a little apostrophe after it.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a given. And
Makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So before we get, I have an update.
Yeah.
And you guys are so excited because
I know.
you have no idea.
I have the butterflies in my stomach right now.
So I was listening to another podcast called Stuff We Missed in History Class.
Yeah, I know that one.
A great show.
Yep.
And they do, one of their most popular things is an unearthed episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all things like in the past year that have been dug up or discovered.
Yep.
And it's gotten so popular, I think they do like a two-parter twice a year kind of thing. And so I was listening to this, I think it was the second part of the most recent one. I think it came out, I don't know, it was the most recent episode. But anyways, that really doesn't matter. I digress. So one thing that they talked about, and I had to like make some notes and then go look up the article, but November 30th of last year, 2021, in the Boston Globe, there was an article about the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
Oh, no way.
And there has been a new clue. Bum, bum, bum.
Oh, my God. Okay, so dug up, like, information, not, like...
Right. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's... Sometimes it's literal dug up. Sometimes it's shipwrecks. Sometimes it's... one of their favorite things is things that are in museums that, like, people open a box and be like, oh, my God, it's Jimmy Hoffa. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this was just kind of like a new clue was dug up.
All right. Lay it on me.
So there's a Paul... I wrote this down because I wrote from... So I have to look at my notes here. Sorry.
Oh, good.
There's a Boston jeweler by the name of Paul Cantropo.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm getting that 100% right. And said that back in the 90s, a Bobby Donati came to him to get an appraisal for an eagle finial.
Yeah.
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 And so basically on the podcast, all they said was that happened and that Bobby Donati was murdered the following year. So I looked a little more into it. And I basically went to the Boston Globe article. And so Bobby Donati went into Paul Cantropo's office or store or whatever to get this thing appraised. And Paul, the jeweler, told Bobby, and this is a quote, he told him it's worthless. He said, Jesus, Bobby, why didn't you steal the Mona Lisa? Because he's like, it's worthless because everybody knows where this is from.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not worth money because you can't sell it.
Yeah.
Later on, that following year, they found Bobby in the trunk of his own Cadillac, which is not a good sign.
Major bummer.
Yeah. And apparently he was connected to a mobster, Vincent Ferrara.
Yep.
And so apparently this Paul Cantropo guy has teamed up with like three other people who are like, one's like an FBI agent, I forget what the other two are, and they just like hobbyists trying to solve the theft or locate the stuff. And so this Paul Cantropo says he believes that the secret of the location died with Bobby. So he doesn't ever feel like the stuff will be located, but he did see the finial. And so then of course the obvious question is like, why didn't you say anything? But obviously
snitches get stitches.
Exactly. And that's what he said is like, obviously, you know, this Bobby guy was connected with some bad people.
Yeah.
And he was afraid for his life to come forward and say anything.
Wow.
So.
That's really wild.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like I had the build-up and then a real letdown at the end. Because the secret died with him.
Well, and that's what he says, but, you know, you never know.
You do never know.
It's around... Well, at the time, it was around somewhere.
Right.
So people see it, people saw it, people knew about it, and just weren't saying anything. So it's kind of now that it's so long ago, I think people are kind of starting to feel a little more like safer, and some of the bad people who were involved are probably no longer with us, so it's less intimidating. So I thought that was very fascinating. Very cool. But other than that, Hannah, what are we talking about today? We're going to be talking about the Pilgrim Power Plant Station. You guys know about that? Not a controversial topic at all. No, none at all. Yeah. I figured it was current, right? There's a lot of stuff going on with it right now. I'll give you a little brief history on the place. I used NBC 10 Boston's recent news about it. It was like literally 4 days ago. All right. Cape Cod Times and WBR had some good articles on it that I think were from November and December. Or September and November, but of 2021. So, is that right? Yeah, 2021. Yeah. Jeez Louise. I know. Time means I was nothing. Like, wait, is that a year ago? No, it was still only a couple months ago. It wasn't that long ago. All right, cool. So, it's located in Manamat in Plymouth and built in 1792. 1792. The Pilgrims built their nuclear power plant. We were ahead of the game. No, in 1972 by the Boston Edison Company. It created 14% of the electricity in Massachusetts, so it powered 700,000 homes. Okay. Which is a lot. Employed about 600 people and stayed owned by the Boston Edison Company until 1999. It sold to Entergy. Entergy is how I know it. Yeah. Mostly, I feel like I had Entergy pens at home, and they walked in the parade. Yeah. I feel like if you grew up in Plymouth, you're like, the name was just always kept around. I drive by the place, I think it was always Entergy. Yeah, I just feel like as a kid, I didn't drive a lot, so I didn't drive by that spot specifically. The pens are how I knew it. So this is from the NRC, which is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Yes, at many times it said that it was the worst run reactor in the U.S. Really? Yes. So it had a historical, just bad news cycles from coming out of there. Like
I assume this is post 3 Mile Island for the worst one in the States, because one of them kind of went off. So.
Yeah. This one, I think there were just a couple marks in its history that really brought it to the attention of locals. Yeah. People who cared, right? Especially people who lived within that 50-mile mark. All of us. Every single one. 10-mile mark, most importantly, but the 50-mile mark. On May 31st, always concerns. There's 2 watchdog groups I should mention. Cape Downwinders and the Pilgrim Watch. Just both active and staying on top of whatever the comings and goings of that place was, because they wanted to make sure if there was something dangerous or a health risk to the community that it was known. So they were not everyone involved in keeping it at the forefront of the news, but definitely a big part of it. Especially when I think there was something that happened in Japan from a... Fukushima? Maybe. That was fairly recently. Right. Yeah, and it was... it was a tidal wave. Yes. Yeah. So tsunami. Obviously it raised concerns for us and how the safety and well-being of that place is construction and all that. Are we prepared for a tsunami? I'm going to say the answer is no. No, I don't know. We're definitely not. Because my house is in tsunami range. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how it would roll out with all the hills that we have here. I feel like... Because we're so up and down above sea level. Yeah, I feel like it would hit, but then it wouldn't stay flooded, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know? Yeah, for sure. Wonder how high. How high above sea level is your house? I don't know. These are things you need to ask yourself. I mean, it's definitely crossed my mind. Okay, anyway, moving on. May 31st, 2019, it shut down and sold to Holtec International, who was in charge of the decommissioning of that power plant, and as well as several others around the country. Okay. CDI, Comprehensive Decommissioning International, is what is referenced as the company that is decommissioning it. Okay. So, a couple different names. So someone bought it to decommission it? Correct. It's interesting. That they get sure it's like a government subsidy kind of thing. So you're jumping ahead to the right spot. Oh, no, okay, this is perfect. Okay. Wow. Right.
It only took us 2 years to get here, Hannah.
Maybe I raised the I don't know.
Years of Andy's practice have finally paid off.
Yeah. I raised my inflection in my voice and you kind of caught it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
You're
So
jump in now.
Yeah. So they received $1 billion
Wow.
to decommission, but it obviously has to fund the decommissioning to it. They can't just get it and not do it.
Right.
People would know.
They just hand a sign on it says decommission. And the S is backwards.
Yeah. All done. And I believe one of the articles I read said that they are decommissioning several others, but have yet to finish any of them.
Okay.
So this is a company, I think they do, I don't know what else they have business in, but they are in the business of shutting down power plants.
Okay.
That's for sure. Attorney General Maura Healey set some regulations to ensure that the job was done better than what is required by the federal law as far as safety and precautions and all that stuff to make sure the standards was better than what's expected. She also got them to hold $250 million to make sure there were still funds at the end of the project should they run out of money.
Okay, that makes sense.
They pretty much got right to work because there was a lot to do there. So there's
Okay, I can imagine.
not globally, but in the U.S., we have an issue where there is no real place to send the used and fuel from power plants. This is a national issue. It's not just a Pilgrim power plant issue.
No, it's a global issue.
Yeah, I mean global. I don't know what other companies, what other countries are doing with theirs, but we don't know where the hell to put ours.
Yeah.
So, the Department of Energy was supposedly supposed to come and take that away, but never did.
Okay.
So we had used nuclear waste just building up on itself.
Yeah.
For the whole time it's been active.
An interesting side note to that. That is kind of unrelated. So it stays radioactive for so long.
Yeah.
That there are concerns about okay, so we put it in this bunker or wherever we put it. How do we label it? Because they're saying it's so long that society as we know it could collapse.
And it will still be radioactive. Yeah.
So there could be, how do you put a warning sign on it?
Never, ever touch this.
But in what language?
Ever.
And it's to the point where you could even
Braille.
say... Braille.
Glowing cats.
Yeah.
Glowing cats.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. This is something they actually tried to come up with.
They were
cats that would glow as a reaction to the radiation and then try to instill a cultural fear of glowing cats. This is the we're throwing stuff against the wall.
Well, the one
phase.
that I heard was Munch's Scream, the figure from the Scream.
Ghostface?
I guess, if you want to call him that. The
painting.
Not the movie Scream. No. Munch, the painter.
I didn't even hear what you said.
Yeah.
So the figure from the painting.
Which is pretty close to Ghostface, I guess.
Yeah, that's
right?
why I'm I don't know. Is that what they call him?
Huh.
So
I was thinking, is that where they got the mask from?
Yeah, it's not.
They could put an atom symbol on it. No, that's really that could
and that's
be
what they're saying is
anything.
even a red
be-
X culturally red might mean something else by the time someone stumbles across it. So
yikes! They should put any symbol. There's on pickle, the big vats of pickles.
yeah.
There's a picture of has a baby falling into it with an X through it.
Oh yeah.
That could be the one.
Yeah. That's on. I think that's on any bucket.
Yeah, any large bucket,
Yeah.
from Home Depot.
Right,
it's on all those
bucket.
buckets.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't throw a baby into the bucket.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that should be the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We solved that problem.
Yes. So they have a couple ideas of some places to put this radioactive waste.
Yeah.
New Mexico has been an option. There's a facility possibly in West Texas that could be an option. They also dug a big hole in a mountain in Utah that they think could work, but none of them have been actually pursued.
And I'm sure none of those states want that.
I don't know. Have you been to those states?
No, but I feel like...
No offense to those states.
No offense to those states, but I feel like even those states being wait, you're going to put what here now?
I know. It's probably so... I don't know. They have to have a big incentive to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's that not in my backyard for anything. But
Yeah.
I feel like this is like not my backyard, and everyone goes, yeah, I mean, I'm going to get
yeah,
that.
because we don't want it in our
Yeah.
backyard either. So by the way, the waste that we're talking about, obviously, there's several things in there, but a lot of it fades out and is no longer radioactive after a little while, except for cesium-137, which it takes like a generation to no longer be harmful, but plutonium-239 is forever
Yeah.
and ever.
Yeah.
And never.
It's serious stuff.
So the CDI removed the concrete shield to
Okay.
the top of the reactor.
Yeah.
So this is the company going in, they're like getting right to the business, going right to the reactor to get the waste out. The core is 21 feet in diameter and 58 feet tall. So pretty big.
Okay.
I'm imagining Simpsons this whole time, like I was doing research on this too. The CDI, the company that is taking care of decommissioning this, right?
Yeah.
They are getting right to the reactor, so they took off the concrete shield from the top of it to get into the core. The core is 21 feet in diameter and 58 feet tall, and is compiled of storage pools, and that's where they kept their fuel
Yeah.
rods, whatever you call them. So the pellets of uranium are the size of a pencil eraser,
Okay.
which is so tiny.
To be stored in a ginormous.
But each one is equivalent to 1 ton of coal and what it could produce for energy.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're placed into rods, and the rods are placed into fuel assemblies. What would make their fuel assembly? So whatever's that, I'm sure some stainless steel gadgets and stuff that hold it together, because they're pretty big.
Yeah.
By the end of it all.
Okay.
And they, obviously with nowhere for those to go, the used fuel assemblies just stayed in a storage pool above the reactor the whole time it's been open,
Okay.
which is
So even the ones that are not
used,
being
the
used.
spent,
Okay.
irradiated is
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the word is for them. So yeah, not being used, just still in there. And they were 5 times more than the amount that it was designed to hold.
Oof.
Yeah. In a 40-foot pool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty big.
It's crazy.
That's insane. So they got to work removing them all in a very careful, delicate, remote claw machine-like effort.
Okay.
It's the best thing I can
All right.
equate it to.
I'm totally with you there.
They did it through a computer, through their little gadgets, and they had everything's underwater essentially. And they removed all of the fuel rods or the assembly rods, and had to place them into these canisters. And the company actually manufactures the canisters, so they're stainless steel, and they're filled with helium to prevent any corrosion. I keep saying coercion,
Okay.
I wrote that. It's not what they're trying to prevent. And they're welded shut and then put into a concrete cask.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to fill up a bunch of these with how much is left in the
In the pool?
in the
Yeah.
pool. I'm going to call it the pool.
The pool.
Yeah,
All
the
right.
pool. And they end up with 62 of them. And they're big. They're
62 concrete containers?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the measurements on my old notes, but of course that was something I missed. They're massive. They're
Yeah.
18 feet tall.
Wow.
And 11 feet wide, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 62 of them, with 2 of them not for the old fuel rods, the spent fuel rods, but they're for just other random waste that was in there. Whether you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure.
Something that's radioactive.
Yeah, something that's radioactive. It went to the right spot, at least the best we can make for now. So essentially, it's a radioactive waste site at this point,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no longer any.
There's no energy coming out.
No,
of it. Yeah.
and it's controlled waste site, I guess, to the best of their ability, right? But that's what it is. It's on a slab of concrete
Okay.
above sea level.
So it hopefully won't leach into the ground.
Nothing, yeah. And these things seem to have worked for all the other places they've used so far.
Yeah.
So they use this really cool, slow crawling giant truck to carry them around, because it all takes about 3 days to do this, to remove one of the fuel assembly rods.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So, and then they have to get into the process of physically moving that safely away.
Sure.
And a giant, like, caterpillar millipede-like truck that, like, crawls to get it to where it's going.
Because you don't want to jostle it or crack the concrete.
Exactly. So it's all a very tedious task. So that started in 2019. And now we're at the point where they're finishing that, and we just have that pool of water with traces of radioactivity in it. Mm-hmm. One can assume.
Yeah.
And they have 3 plans for it.
Okay.
Ideas, essentially. Evaporating it, so letting some out and letting it evaporate. Sending it somewhere else, which feels crazy.
Which is also one of those we can't find anywhere to send anything.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then releasing it into the bay.
Yeah.
Releasing it into the bay is obviously very controversial. I'm sure all of it is, right?
Yeah.
Evaporating it sounds weird because then will it rain down? Like, where does the radioactivity go once it's up in the sky?
Well, it's one of those things. Does the evaporation's an interesting thing? Because
does it stay in the ground? Is it like salt water? How salt stays in the ocean?
Well, that's what I'm going to say. Is like if you evaporate it at the end, are you going to have like basically some sort of sediment that has evaporated out, and that's what's radioactive?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, that wasn't the option that seems most explored. The one that seems most explored is letting it out into the bay. This happened periodically and is like under the NRC is allowed as long as levels are within like federal guidelines.
Right.
So this happened throughout the power plant's like open use. It happened all the time. The only time it needed to stop was when the temperature of the ocean got too high because they're letting out like hot water. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure like if levels of that whatever the waste was that's in the water were too high for radioactivity. So it is something that's been practiced before, but not something people are looking forward to now.
Right.
Given like how much water is it? It's over 1 million gallons.
Okay.
Yes, which is a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah.
I feel like it'd be like a tidal wave. I'm sure they'd let it out slowly. Yeah. But could you imagine? Like, whoosh. Just crack it open. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a few different options, but the one that seems most talked about is letting it into the ocean. Yeah. And people aren't fans of that. Neil Sheehan, he's from the NRC, says as long as it's within guidelines, it's totally legal for them to do that. Yeah. It's also totally legal for them to like not really consult us on it. Like there's a commission for it that's involved with like what the steps are and what they're taking, and they should if they want to be in the good graces of the community. Like that's what people should do in business. That's not always what happens. Holtec has accelerated the plan to have it complete by 2024. Their original deadline, like the deadline they have to be done with it by, is by 2068.
Okay.
So they've like sped it up tenfold.
By done with the decommission, not just by getting rid of the water.
With the decommission, totally. Okay. Yeah. Because getting rid of the water is still just like one more step.
Yeah, because it's just like the idea of evaporation. Like, that's fine, but how long does it take to evaporate 1 million gallons? Like,
it depends on how far you spread it out.
Yeah, how hot it is.
How hot it is and humidity. Yeah, it was more just a rhetorical. I wasn't looking for an exact time, Fish.
Good, I didn't have that.
That's. I wish she did. Yeah. Now, the groups who have kept an eye on the plant for a while are naturally concerned. I mean, one of them, to their point, said you can literally see the canisters from like when you drive by it on Rocky Hill Road.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy. Like that is kind of weird. CDI maintains that they're committed to community safety and aligning with what we find safe. And will continue to evaluate their decision through 2022. The NRC says that Holtec can change its plans at any time, and as long as they're within guidelines, they're perfectly fine to do that. So that's kind of the update on the power plant. That's where we're at.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So there were some other things I read about it. I mean, I went through probably 10 different articles about it. There was the history one of it, of all of the happenings with it was really cool. Tons and tons of stuff.
Maybe that'll be another episode for another time.
And then there was one part of the article, so now that we do have that waste there with nowhere for it to go, the potential for keeping it safe not just from like natural disasters but man-made disasters.
Oh yeah, that was one of the like big concerns after like 9/11,
like terrorist attack and stuff like that. So
there used to be like a wildlife trail that you could walk around.
Yeah, and
you can't do that anymore.
You can't fish near it. You can't do anything near it. So, and that's just because it's not an active power plant. The waste is still just as dangerous. So
sure.
Yeah, so keeping it safe and guarded is part of the deal there too.
Yeah.
So I guess the end of the story really is that Holtec can keep whatever is left of the $1 billion when they're done.
Right.
So,
which is a little problematic because they're trying to do it as cheap as possible.
Everyone's concerned, that cutting corners typically doesn't bode well when you're trying to just do something as safely as you can.
Right.
I think like this reminds me similarly of like the potential horse track and casino in Wareham.
Okay.
Where it's a good reminder that if you live in the town that something like that is happening and that you're questioning like the public safety and health and best interests, it's like the people who live there are the stewards of that area.
Right.
And the business from out of town is not.
Correct. Yeah.
That's like as simple as you can get.
And generally businesses in general are not, anytime you're looking to, I think there's a line from Armageddon where they're like, oh, did you ever think about we're sitting on, 100 million moving parts built by the lowest bidder? And it's like anytime you bring business into things of safety and politics, it's just not a really good idea.
True.
Certain things that you should probably pay top dollar for.
Definitely. I was surprised to see that they wrapped up bringing out all of the used fuel already because it's from 2019 to now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's still there.
Yes.
It was supposed to be moved offsite. I remember I heard big
Yes.
complaints about that. But it's not that they don't want to move it offsite.
Yeah,
there's just nowhere to move
yeah,
it.
yeah. And they're, like I said earlier, not the only decommissioned power plant that is going through that. That's just like, that's everywhere. Like, where is it going to go?
Exactly.
That's not an issue they can necessarily control.
Yeah.
If they don't have any allowance to bring it anywhere else. So we got it. We're the proud owners.
But it's one of those, future people's problems, and we're the future people that are dealing with it. And
right.
So hopefully we'll come up with a good solution.
I hope so. They always want to bring it to the deserts, right?
Well, it's the least populated.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if you want to get it away from people,
the desert.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And I hate to say this, I feel like the other options would be like a third world country where we'd be like, oh, it's not our problem.
Yeah.
That seems to be a typical solution
right.
for that type of thing. But, it just needs a better solution.
Definitely. At a larger level solutions than just what we're
that's not a Plymouth problem, that's an everywhere problem.
Yeah, for sure. And that's about it. I mean, the power plant is definitely, I lived like 3 miles away from it at one point.
Yeah.
I grew up with in school, they were like, hey, was it potassium iodine? Is that what it is?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
You take it's probably not, but you take that in case there is ever a leak, and they'd like show us where that was, and they're like, "We have that in case something happens."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay."
Do
you want me to just take it now, just in case?
I remember the first time so I've lived in Plymouth maybe 10 years, and I was sitting at home one day and like, the hell is someone on a bullhorn? And there's like an
the drills.
Yeah.
Does that not happen everywhere else?
But the part that disturbed me the most, it's not loud enough.
No.
Inside my house, and the speaker wasn't very far away, I'm like, what is that? Like, it didn't make me go, oh my God.
Yeah.
It made me go, that guy's being super loud.
You just unlocked like a core memory for me. I can't believe I ever forgot about those. That happened probably twice a year if I'm being real light on the number. Like, that happened often. And we'd get
they still happen.
They do?
Yeah.
I don't even notice them.
Yeah.
It's just become background noise.
Well, like I said, they're not super loud. Like they can happen, and you could just not notice it.
Well, we had one like off our road growing up because we just so happened to be like far enough away from everyone that we like got our own, and it was loud as heck.
There's one on South Street.
Yeah.
And
there's a bunch downtown because we're so close.
Yeah, that I live pretty close to, and I kind of like once I realized what it was, I was a little irritated because I'm like, yeah, that should be louder.
That should be louder.
If I was asleep, I wouldn't have heard it.
Yeah, but it's in school before you go home. Yeah. Like the last before we end our day, just so you know, there's going to be a thing today, and they'd let us know what was going on. But and then the evacuation route is like marked all out of Plymouth.
Yeah,
that was always weird.
Which is always like, that would be a total nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that growing up, my middle school was one of the quote-unquote fallout shelters. I'm like, am I really far enough away for that?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm Bridgewater. It's not that long a drive.
Yeah.
No.
No, but it was one of the, like, we're evacuating Plymouth. We're going to sticking with the Williams School now.
Yeah, I know. It was a very weird topic, but we definitely talked about it pretty often at school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very weird. Wow. Weird reality. Not everywhere has power plants.
No. But on another side note, New Bedford had one decommissioned not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And they did like one of those building implosions of the cooling tower, which I don't live in New Bedford, so I didn't know, but I have lots of friends who do. So everyone was posting pictures of this cooling tower collapsing, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
So it's unnerving, but it's part of living in today.
Yeah, it's true. Well, hopefully not for much longer with all the different ways people are creating energy.
And then we just have to figure out what to do with that.
And then when that's gone,
waste.
Yeah. Well, solar panels are a huge thing because they're just trash once they're done.
Yeah.
And they're only good for so long. So that's like another big, not to mention, this could be a whole nother episode. Yeah. So before I go on a rant, not to mention there's like so many acres of land in Massachusetts getting destroyed like just for solar power.
Every source of power has issues.
Yeah.
You got to figure out what's the least damaging. That's the trick.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think this is the part where we stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. So thanks again for listening.